It's Tuesday, May 26th, 2026, and it's time for The Swamp, where I cover the daily happenings inside the federal machine. And if you enjoyed the video, please give a quick like and subscribe. Drop all the comments you want. Every article is linked below in the description, and the highlight segments from tonight's episode will drop right here on this channel tomorrow morning at 8 a.m. Eastern Standard Time. We're going to start with breaking 911. Anti-ICE protesters, they're back out again because, of course they are. It's summertime. Why wouldn't they be out protesting and obstructing and being fortunate enough, as far as they're concerned, from getting arrested, even though they should be getting arrested by the droves, but for some reason, Immigration and Customs Enforcement isn't doing so, but we're going to get into that out of New Jersey. So anti-ICE protesters remained outside Delaney Hall in Newark, New Jersey, demanding DHS release detainees after reports that migrants inside launched a hunger strike over allegations of spoiled food being served at the facilities. So I think we already know where this is going to end up going. Let's have a look.
So I'm in New Jersey, where you can see behind me a bunch of anti-ICE protesters. This has been going on all throughout the weekend. You can see them. They're blocking the ICE agents here in New Jersey from doing their jobs, and they're yelling at them, telling them to take off their masks. This is the deal. These protesters want to shut down the ICE facility here in Newark. Why? Because they say the migrants who are here illegally and are detained in there are not being treated well. They say they're being fed spoiled food, so now they're in a hunger strike. So New Jersey Democrats say, release all these people. You can't hold them in here. And the protesters want that to happen too. DHS says, number one, there is no hunger strike at this facility. Number two, they're not releasing anybody because they say the migrants inside there are in the country illegally and have very serious rap sheets.
Of course they are. Of course they are, because the Trump administration is arresting the criminal illegal immigrants first. Once they get the entire criminal element taken care of, no thanks to the Biden administration and the Democrats, God knows how many of them have flooded into the country because, I mean, like, how many individuals were in insane asylums in, let's say, the country of Colombia or El Salvador, and how many individuals were in prisons in each of those countries? How many Latin American countries are there? There's like 3-4 dozen, probably 30, 40. Something like that. There's a lot of people. And there was a lot of criminals that came up during the Biden administration. Hundreds of thousands, if not probably over 1 million, frankly. And we'll go ahead and move on to the next one. Needless to say, no, don't let them out. But Democrats want them to be let out because the more that they let out, the closer they get to adding yet another congressional House seat for the Democrat Party. The libs of TikTok, lock them up. The only way this behavior stops is with swift, harsh punishment. It's embarrassing that this is allowed to continue to go on. And from Olaya Scootercaster, new clashes continue outside Delaney Hall ICE detention facility as anti-ICE protesters form a human chain around them as exits are, or exits, I don't know why I said exists, but as exits are blocked. And they've got the credits for the video and the licensing and all that stuff. So I have a feeling I probably can't play too much of this just for that reason. So I'm giving credit, though, at least. I mean, the video is by this individual, New York City people. You can check them out here on the X platform. They have a pretty decent following, a few thousand people. And freedomnews.tv, FNTV. So these are the individuals who took the videos. And 29,000 followers, and you've got the handle right there at Freedom in TV. And I guess we'll give this a look. It's 4 minutes in total. I'm very edgy when it comes to playing this entire video because they're saying, you know, licensing this and credits that. So we'll give it like maybe 30 seconds or so, but I will repost it. So there's a direct link to my profile below in the description. You can go straight to my profile and you can watch the entire thing right there. I just don't want my YouTube video to get taken down because that would really suck. Let's see where this goes. All right, so obviously there's fighting happening. Again, freedomnews.tv. Check out freedomnews.tv. And a lot of fighting, there's the sit-in, of course. Causing problems, screaming, sitting in the middle of the road. Dude, this is textbook obstruction. Textbook obstruction. They are obstructing federal agents because, look, they may not be blocking the entrance to the federal building, but they're certainly blocking the road, which would prevent federal agents from entering or exiting the building, because if they got the roadblock, how are they going to, once they enter the public roadway, how are they going to be able to pass? They are directly and deliberately obstructing 8 years in federal prison. That's the maximum that could carry. That would, I would assume, per count. I'm not sure if they could serve that consecutively or not, but Anyway, and they're doing nothing. They're just standing here. This is what's so frustrating. And I believe it was Nick Stordor. He's a person that I reference pretty often, right here on The Swamp with regard to what he reports and what he posts. He's very active on X, very popular on X. And he said that getting rid of Kristi Noem was a really bad idea. Look, I could go one way or the other. I try not to play favorites on here. I see what I see, and I give my opinions whenever I do. Take them with a massive grain of salt because, what the hell do I know at the end of the day? But he believes that getting rid of Kristi Noem caused or will ultimately cause Immigration Customs Enforcement, the agency as a whole, to be a lot softer on these protesters and these obstructionists. So, I don't know. But anyway, just jumping a little bit here and there. You got the Bearcats out, armored vehicles, agents are there. They look like they're on federal property. Are they on federal property? Look, if they're blocking a street, man, not to sound like a broken record, but fucking obstruction, hello. And I'm sure they don't have a permit to protest. Not that I'm sure that the mayor of Newark, I can only imagine how left that they must be. I've never been to New Jersey, never been to Newark, but I can only imagine how deep blue that area probably is. So the mayor probably isn't going to have the police go down there and arrest them because they're protesting without issuing or having a permit issued to their protest originally. Anyway, so we'll just roll on to the next one. And I've got quite a few from Homeland Security. So this is what Homeland Security says about this whole situation that broke out over the weekend. And well, first, let me do this from Ed Krasenstein. I mean, this dude's a real winner. He's a bozo, blockhead, moron. Disgraceful. ICE agents tear-gassed U.S. Senator Andy Kim at Delaney Hall detention facility in New Jersey today. Kim was supporting hunger-striking detainees protesting spoiled food, which we already got from Homeland Security. They're not protesting inside the facility. No medical care and extreme heat when federal agents unleashed tear gas and pepper spray. Well, I mean, what? So they're blaming the heat on federal agents now. Okay, well, sounds like the left. Kim struggled to breathe and injured his hand in the chaos. Well, that would be his fault. He's the one that's protesting, quote unquote, really obstructing, rioting in some cases, depending on what damage might be having done. So we'll take a quick look at this. I'm calling bullshit on this. I don't think he honestly got pepper spray because dude's got his eyes open. But anyway, let's give it. It's an act. You know how they do this, the Democrats. Dial up the drama to level 1 million. Dude ain't pepper sprayed. Come on. It's ridiculous. Dude ain't pepper sprayed. His eyes aren't red, first of all. And he's opening up his eyes pretty freely, both of them. Look, I've seen enough of these videos to know that if you're getting pepper sprayed, your eyes are not opening anytime soon. Your face gets really red. Your eyes get really puffy. You just cannot physically open your eyes. Like, that's why they have to, force your eyes open with their fingers pinching your eyes open to try to get the fluid in there. He would have snot running down his nose. Dude wasn't hit by shit. But you know how the Democrats do it, trying to dial up the drama to 1 million because the likes of Ed Krasenstein could put him on blast. Or by them, I mean ICE. So anyway, this is the response from Homeland Security. No individuals were directly attacked by pepper ball projectiles. On May 25th, 2026, rioters obstructed law enforcement from exiting the ICE facility. Officers issued multiple lawful verbal commands for rioters to clear the area. Rioters refused to follow law enforcement commands and continued to obstruct the exit route. As I said, if you're obstructing their ability to enter or leave the building, why not? They have every right, every ability, and every justification to arrest every single person who's blocking that entrance or exit. And I don't know why they're not, but they're not. Our law enforcement followed their training and used the minimum amount of force necessary to protect themselves, the public, and federal property. Well, how about issuing a lot more handcuffs so you could throw these assholes in jail? The First Amendment protects speech and peaceful assembly, not rioting. DHS has taken appropriate and constitutional measures to uphold the rule of law and protect our officers and the public from dangerous rioters. We remind the public that rioting is dangerous. Obstructing law enforcement is a federal crime, and assaulting law enforcement is a felony. And we'll roll on to the next one. Like I said, I got a few more of these. So this is from U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement. I probably should read this one first from Homeland Security. While the rest of America was honoring our fallen heroes, New Jersey sanctuary politicians spent Memorial Day weekend smearing ICE, law enforcement, and fighting for criminals. These are some of the most heinous criminals New Jersey sanctuary politicians want to be your neighbor. And the response from U.S. Immigration and Customs Enforcement, all detainees are provided with 3 meals a day, and clean water, and clothing, and bedding, and showers, and soap, and toiletries. It's just like any other jail or prison system. There are standards. They're not living in absolute filth and squalor because they're not allowed to, not that they would want to anyway, because they want to treat them humanely. All right, so illegal aliens also have access to phones to communicate with their family members and lawyers. Certified dietitians evaluate their meals. In fact, ICE has higher detention standards than most U.S. prisons that hold actual U.S. citizens, because we want to we want to give the appearance, well, not even the appearance, like we want to treat people who are not U.S. citizens, whether if they're here legally or illegally, we want to treat them with the same standards as we would treat anybody else. Frankly, I don't think that they should have higher standards than most U.S. prisons. I think the U.S. prison system and the ICE detention system should have the exact same, probably the same sourcing for their food, their bedding, their clothing, their toiletries, and all that stuff. But, at least in ICE detention facilities, they don't have to save up money and have to buy their own soap or buy their own shampoo like you have to do in the prison system, as far as I understand. All right, so let's roll on to the next. From Nick Sordor, F around to find out. ICE agents were seen dragging a leftist rioter outside their ICE detention facility in Newark and stuffing him into the back of their squad car, keep him locked up. No immediate release, or else this will never end. And it's not going to end because, look, they arrest them. And, of course, if they're arrested by ICE and they're prosecuted by the federal government, it's carried out by the federal government. It's not carried out by the local judicial system, which they have a tendency, not sure about New Jersey and Newark specifically, but they have a tendency, the judges, of just letting them out without even charging them with anything. They're like, oh yeah, whatever, you're what, rioting? Well, peaceful protesting? Yeah, you're free to go, whatever. And they just, it's a revolving door. They just go over and over again. Uh-oh, what happened? All right, don't know what happened there, but let's give us another try. There we go.
And they deserve to be with their families. These people are human beings. Yes, thank you. Thank you for standing up for humanity. Thank you for standing up for humanity. Thank you for standing up for humanity.
They will be with their families. That's why we're sending them home, so they can be home with their families, where they came from.
You
know what's going on? And there's a hunger strike. 5 days.
Fake news, according to DHS. The federal government.
I know you got a job to do, but there has to be a soft spot in your party.
What proof do these bozos even have that there is a hunger strike going on? Oh, because some NGO or some non-profit put out the rumor. Well, I got a call from somebody, anonymous source somewhere.
No weapons whatsoever.
People have done nothing.
None of us can hurt you. None of us. And yet you're over here with bullets and batons. And what else? What else?
America, goddammit.
I see you. One of you have.
Well, just wait. Just give it some time. Usually as soon as night falls, then that's when the rioting starts. Not saying that they did. Just saying, they've got quite a colorful history of fighting the cops, throwing objects at the cops, lobbing mortars at them, and all kinds of funny business. Nick Sordor, leftists are actively fighting ICE detention facility staff over barriers they're using to block the driveway. Well, speak of the devil. And staff just gives in to them. This is really frustrating. The terrorists are in control, according to Nick Sordor. Let's have a look.
We're on public property.
FreedomNews.tv.
We're on public property. God damn it. We're on public property. Get off of the barricade. Get out of here. Weak ass. Get out of here.
So they're putting up physical barriers to block federal agents from being able to leave. I'm assuming they're blocking their entrance/exit. That would be obstruction, ladies and gentlemen. 8 years in prison, but they're not going to arrest him because, as Nick Sordor said, it would seem that these, I'll just say obstructionists, they're in control.
Knock along the side.
accomplished nothing except being a massive asshole.
That's crazy, you guys are wasting your energy on a truck.
Well, it's amazing you're wasting your time. You know, instead of being with family, enjoying the beautiful summer day, defending causes you know very little to nothing at all about. Anyway, from Eric Doherty, what the fuck? Ghetto Rep LaMonica McIver, charged for assaulting a federal agent, is back at the Newark, New Jersey ICE facility, claiming to inspect the facility, quote unquote, inspect the facility, which I believe the federal government standards, they've changed it. I think they changed it relatively recently, but I think that they have to give 72 hours notice because, look, according to the government, and Immigration and Customs Enforcement, they have to secure the facility, make sure that there's no ways that any members of Congress can be harmed when they're touring the building. I don't really buy all that. I think if they want to come in, then, you know, it's at their own risk. Have them sign a waiver or something. So if they get injured while they're in there, I mean, dude, there's got to be cameras all over the place. So if there's a member of Congress who unfortunately gets injured while they're in there touring the facility, well, they not only did they sign whatever waiver, which probably wouldn't hold up in any court, but it would probably be on video also, and plus the federal agents that escort them around, they could have body cameras on. I think they could very well document it. So honestly, I don't think that that's a good policy at all. I think if a Democrat rep wants to go in there and tour the facility with no notice, let him in. You know, like, you're just giving them more ammunition to say that they're engaging in hunger strikes, for example. If you just let them in right away and you show them, oh, look, there's no hunger strikes going on, then you could squash all this immediately, but they're not doing that. Anyway, so expel her from, or hold on, let's see, where are we? Claiming to inspect the facility while rioters block the entrance and clash with officers. Expel her from Congress. Why is she still allowed to pull this BS? McIver needs to be ousted as soon as Congress reconvenes. Of course, that's an opinion shared by Eric Doherty, not necessarily myself. It's gonna be all Fox News.
Congresswoman LaMonica McIver, who was charged with assaulting a federal officer during a similar stunt at Delaney Hall last year, was there. She posted yesterday, "I am back at Delaney Hall with members of our New Jersey delegation and Governor Sherrill. I'm talking to advocates and families, inspecting the facility and demanding justice. We've seen the inhumane conditions, heard reports of abuse, and there's one right option: shut down Delaney Hall." Meanwhile, DHS Secretary Mark Wayne Mullen dismissed the protest as nothing more than a political stunt by New Jersey sanctuary politicians for fundraising clicks. There is no hunger strike at Delaney Hall. New Jersey sanctuary politicians chose to spend their Memorial Day weekend swearing ICE officers. They should be thanking our law enforcement for removing these murderers, pedophiles, rapists, and drug traffickers from their state. And Governor Mikey Sherrill and Senator Andy Kemp.
No, they are not interested in that at all. They want all of them on the street. God knows why, but they do. All right, so heading on to next order. Hopefully everything sounds okay. By the way, I just got a brand new computer yesterday, and I stayed up till like 3 o'clock in the morning getting everything all set up. OBS is a lot more complicated than I thought it was, just trying to move everything from the old one to the new one. Like 85% of the settings did move over fine, but I had to import certain things and get my webcam working again, and it was a big debacle that lasted a lot longer than I expected. So hopefully this sounds okay. Hopefully there's no crackling. That was a long, multi-month issue that I had with my old computer, that I would get crackling in the microphone. So hopefully that's not an issue. But anyway, I guess we'll just move on to next order. Beautiful. A man just came up and prayed with ICE agents outside their Newark detention facility. One agent even held the man's hands during prayer. All Americans should be praying for these heroes. They're fighting true evil on our behalf. That was very nice of him. Offering prayer to any of the agents who would like to pray. All right, so let's move on to the next topic. Breaking number one, Texas DPS, which I think that's the state police, isn't it, for Texas? They discovered 20 illegal aliens being smuggled inside a tractor trailer near Laredo, Texas. So let's see what this is all about. Let's turn it down a little bit. $20 illegals in there, and it's Texas, damn near June. A lot of illegals end up dying from heat stroke being transported like this. God knows how long they've been in there. Holy shit, dude's running. Took off. There went the driver. Oh no, I'm not doing anything wrong.
There's a lot more.
¿Nadie viene heridos? No, al parecer nadie. ¿Niños?
Menores.
¿Menores? ¿Qué su edad? 17. Ok, ¿armas? No. ¿De qué país?
Despacio, te voy a tomar el brazo, no creo que se me vaya a caer.
Good grief. Well, there you go. Some snapshots. They did say 20, I believe, right? 20. Miguel Velasquez, Chavez, Laredo, Texas. Smuggling of persons and evading arrest. Smuggler has been arrested. And I don't know how people do it who live in the border towns and like anywhere near the border, especially during the Biden administration with like literally thousands a day were streaming across the border, just running through people's backyards and shit. All right, so let's move on to Immigration and Customs Enforcement authorities identified 283 undocumented truck drivers during inspections at Indiana way stations. So this happened. Nearly 300 undocumented migrants carrying commercial driver's licenses issued by states, including New York and California, of course, have been stopped and prosecuted in Indiana over the past 3 months, according to a report. So this wasn't just a weekend bust. This is kind of a long-term operation that they had going on in Indiana, and it's going to be on Newsmax as soon as I get all that squared away. Yeah, again, new computer, so I got to size everything up again, and it'll be a process. But all right, so anyway, nearly 300 undocumented migrants carrying commercial driver's licenses issued by states including New York and California have been stopped and prosecuted in Indiana over the past 3 months. The New York Post reported Saturday, citing comments from an aide to Republican Governor Mike Braun. Tony Ferraro, a Braun aide and member of the Northwestern Indiana Regional Planning Commission, said during a recent meeting that authorities identified 283 undocumented truck drivers during inspections at Indiana way stations, according to the Post and the Chicago Tribune, which first reported the remarks. That's over 3 per day that we pulled out of trucks, Ferraro said, according to the Post. Ferraro said many of the drivers carried commercial driver's licenses, or CDLs, issued by states including New York and California that permit non-citizens to obtain licenses under certain circumstances, the Post reported. And Secretary Sean Duffy with Transportation, he's already sanctioned, I think, both states, California and New York. And for California, it was a fairly high number. I think it was approaching like $100 million worth of Department of Transportation funds that he was withholding from the state until they get their CDL issuance to illegal immigrants under control. And you got a state like New York, there's been people that have been busted driving trucks, and when they present their CDL, the card says no name given. So the person refused to give their name when they went to get their CDL, and New York was like, all right, that's fine. We don't need your name. We'll just put no name given. And it was an official CDL. Anyway, so Indiana officials did not specify what criminal charges were filed against the drivers or whether the licenses themselves were deemed invalid, according to the report. Federal rules generally require CDL holders to be legally authorized to work in the United States, which I would assume that would be E-Verify, although it doesn't seem like anybody really even uses that anymore. Though the Post noted that some immigration and licensing rules vary by state and may depend on when credentials were issued. Indiana does not issue driver's licenses to undocumented immigrants, and Braun's administration has stepped up highway inspections and immigration-related enforcement efforts since taking office earlier this year. Republican Indiana Attorney General Todd Rokita has also backed tougher immigration enforcement policies, including expanded cooperation between local law enforcement and federal immigration authorities. And there you have it. So Indiana, they're cracking down, getting more and more off the highways. And Homeland Security, good. So let's see what's good. The Denver Post, with no options left, a Venezuelan family living in Colorado walks into ICE custody seeking to go back home. And so Homeland Security said, well, that's good. Let's see. Authorities. Oh, wait, hold on. Here it is. We encourage all illegal aliens to take advantage of our historic and generous CBP home deal. $2,600 and a free flight. And that is the link for those who want to voluntarily self-deport. Of course, I'll have that in the description, though I'm sure anybody listening to this would not need to take advantage of that, but you never know. And this is from the denverpost.com. With no options left, they decided to turn themselves in. And Cecilia stood outside. All right, let me see if I can just get to the meat and potatoes of it. And yeah, so she and her 3 children, ages 12, 9, and 6, had walked for 3 months. 3 months walking to get into the United States in 2024, crossing notorious expanses of jungle and mountains for the prospect of a stable future and a reunion with Ronald, who'd come earlier that year, probably, or certainly illegally as well. But like other families split by the Trump administration's immigration crackdown, they now found themselves struggling to make ends meet in a single-parent household with no regular paycheck and few options. Well, it's also because the cost of living in the United States is substantially higher, and nobody who is not an American citizen should not be getting any benefits in any way, shape, or form. Look, if NGOs, nonprofits that are not receiving federal funds, if they want to raise money and hand money over to non-American citizens, then fine, by all means, but they shouldn't be using taxpayer money for it. The loss of a primary source of income, coupled with the federal government's efforts to keep many immigrants indefinitely detained, has spurred families like Cecilia's and detainees like her husband to stop fighting and leave the country. Look, that's all you got to do. Just turn yourself in. They'll put you on a quick flight right back to the country where you originally came from, and then you can be reunited with your extended family. They've given up on asylum cases or other legal defenses in favor of a swift release from detention and from financial collapse. An unprecedented number have asked to leave while in detention, while tens of thousands more have, like Cecilia, signed up to leave in exchange for a promise of cash and a flight home. Many more have simply left on their own, immigration advocates say. Well, yeah, if you get arrested by Immigration and Customs Enforcement, you can't just say, okay, all right, I'll take the $2,600. No, that's not how it works. No, now you have to go through the whole system. And then you'll be eventually deported. And I'm sure they have a very heavy backlog because Biden administration let in tens of millions of them. So yeah, it's probably taken them multiple months to finally get on through the system and on a flight to get back home. I can only imagine. So Cecilia, who had been seeking asylum in the U.S., said outside the Centennial office that her family would be flown first to Arizona and kept in a detention center before they left. Seeking asylum for what? Financial asylum because she came from a third world country? That's not asylum. You know, just because your country's not as prosperous as the United States, that's not good enough. I mean, look, all these people should be remaining in their countries and getting their country up to a first world status instead of fleeing the country that is, I guess, you know, for lack of a better word, failed. And, you know, like it's like the old saying, like you can take someone out of the ghetto, but you can't take the ghetto out of the person. All right, so 2 nonprofit workers and a volunteer had come with the family to the field office. They weren't accustomed to walking immigrants without proper legal status into ICE custody. They were skeptical of the story Cecilia had heard. Okay, so anyway, it's a storytelling article. So this isn't like really just, you know, straight to the point, given any like data statistics and all that. But I will certainly have this linked below in the description. denverpost.com. I'm sure that's going to be the only Denver Post link down below. If you want to have a look at that, you can read the whole thing yourself. And we'll roll on to the next from Defiant L's. Getting a green card may have gotten just a little bit harder. There's a litmus test. Have you not committed any crimes? Are you generally a good person and not going to be a burden on the country? I think those questions are very valid. And if they end up breaking whatever oath that they're making to become a U.S. citizen, no matter how severe or how not severe, then yeah, you should be stripped of your citizenship. All right, so let's give this a look from Channel 5 ABC.
Living in Minnesota and elsewhere, getting a green card, becoming a lawful permanent resident, may have gotten just a little bit harder.
What is this going to mean for a lot of folks who are trying to just stay in the United States?
It is a potentially seismic shift in how this process is done.
That new memo by the Trump administration requires foreigners who want a green card to leave and apply in their home country. Formerly,
that's
applicants
right.
could do that.
We covered that last week.
Legal experts say the change could have a big impact on the 10,000 to 15,000 people in Minnesota seeking green cards.
At every floor, at every stage,
That's the way it
They're
should have been
tightening up
all
everything.
along.
They're turning over old legal rocks that haven't been looked under in 40 years.
So what? It's the law, dude. It's the law.
U.S. Citizenship and
Get Congress to
Immigration
change it then.
Services says non-immigrants like students, temporary workers, or those with tourist visas come to the U.S. for a short time and a specific purpose.
Yeah, to apply for a green
The
card.
agency says, quote, our system is designed for them to leave when their visit is over.
Right.
Their visit should not function as the first step in the green card process.
No,
What's
it
different
shouldn't.
about this now? What's the change?
Immigration law professor Anna Patratz Acosta says essentially it's a tightening of the rules. In some cases, U.S. CIS officers might allow interviews here, but she says there is a litmus test.
Have you not committed any crimes? Have you paid your taxes? Are you generally a good person and you're not going to be a burden on the country?
All right. Yeah, those are fair questions to be asking. And look, if they're coming from a legitimate war-torn country, or if their life is actually in jeopardy if they return home, if they're being religiously persecuted, I mean, I think all of that is already written into the law. Like, those are the parameters that you can that somebody must meet before they can be granted asylum in the U.S. From Tom Emmer, the law should be clear. This man should be denaturalized and kicked out of the country. Past the Scam Act, Minneapolis man was sentenced to 8.5 years for attempting to provide material support to ISIS. So I guess he became a U.S. citizen at some point. But yeah, if you're providing material support to a international terrorist organization, yeah, you should be absolutely denaturalized and sent off back home immediately. And a federal district court yesterday sentenced Abdiastar Ahmed Hassan, 23, of Minneapolis, to 102 months or 8.5 years imprisonment, followed by 15 years of supervised release for his attempts to provide material support and resources to a designated foreign terrorist organization, namely the Islamic State of Iraq and al-Sham, known as ISIS. Announced U.S. Attorney Daniel N. Rosen, ISIS has been duly designated as a foreign terrorist organization by the U.S. Secretary of State since 2014, the Obama administration. According to court documents, Hassan began consuming information from and about ISIS and other State Department designated foreign terrorist organizations in at least 2024. For example, Hassan obtained and reposted ISIS propaganda articles and videos, some of them extremely violent. I don't know, I can imagine probably executions, beheadings, things like that, on his various social media accounts. He downloaded multiple files from a known media wing of ISIS with names like The Life of Mujahideen, The Month of Jihad, The Return of the Caliphate, and The Path of Jihad. He obtained online manuals written in Arabic on how to make highly explosive materials such as C4, urea nitrate, HMTD, and hexamine. He openly posted his desire for jihad and an Islamic caliphate on his various social media accounts. He also obtained manuals on ammunition making and sniper training skills, contacted an online school specializing in gunsmithing and drone technology, and conducted online research in topics such as gun ranges, ISIS supporters, Somalia weapons, and various articles related to ISIS-inspired attacks and terroristic acts on an interactive map. Okay. All right, so moving down just a bit. On December 13th, 2024, FBI agents surveilled Hassan's attempt to fly to Somalia from Minneapolis-St. Paul International Airport. Lacking proper travel documents, however, he was turned away. After acquiring additional travel documents, he rebooked the same one-way itinerary to Somalia, and on December 29th, 2024, he flew from MSP to Chicago en route to Somalia. Prior to boarding his international flight to Chicago, Customs and Border Protection Tactical Terrorism Response Team interviewed Hassan about his intentions, which prevented his onward travel. Inside Hassan's only carry-on bag, CBP agents found his birth certificate, naturalization certificate, and high school diploma. During the interview, Hassan initially denied any nefarious intent, but later professed his belief in ISIS, his consumption of ISIS propaganda, and his hopes for the establishment of an Islamic caliphate, telling the CBP agents that he did not believe in democracy and that America's justice was, in fact, terrorism. All right, moving down a bit more. The FBI Minneapolis Division Special Agent in Charge, Christopher D. Dodson, Hassan celebrated the 2025 murder of 14 innocent Americans in New Orleans, a senseless attack on American soil. Attempted to travel in order to take up arms on behalf of ISIS, and when unable to get his destination, promoted ISIS and al-Shabaab propaganda, encouraging others to fight against the United States. The sentence handed down today takes a would-be terrorist off the streets and sends a clear message that the FBI and our partners will unremittingly pursue anyone seeking to join or support a foreign terrorist organization. This case is a result of an investigation conducted by the FBI, the Joint Terrorism Task Force, Customs and Border Protection, and the New York Police Department. Assistant U.S. Attorney Benjamin Behar prosecuted the case with assistance from National Security Division Counterterrorism Section Trial Attorney Eric Hansen. And again, this is on justice.gov, and that'll be links below because I skipped through a little bit of it. It's kind of a long article, but that'll be below. And from Greg Price from Kane, is it your position that you want to no longer see ICE enforce immigration law? Well, immigration law is not really criminal law.
Now, what I would like to ask you is, ICE is simply the enforcement mechanism for democratically elected laws of the people. Now, for a party who has talked about the threat to democracy, is it your position that you do not want to see the will of the people, the democratically elected laws, enforced?
First of all, Will, you and I both know that immigration law is not criminal law. Immigration law is civil law. It's like getting a parking ticket. So the idea that we should have a paramilitary force that is weaponized on our streets to enforce civil law seems to me to be a bit over the top, particularly considering the fact that the current president is weaponizing.
All right, well, see, I don't know why they cut it off like that. That's really frustrating. You'd think that they would have played off the rest of it, Mr. Greg Price. So anyway, immigration law is not criminal law. Immigration law is civil law. It's like getting a parking ticket. And then he finishes off this post by saying, crossing the border illegally is a federal crime under 8 U.S.C. section 1325. So it is actually illegal. It is a federal crime and not just some little gentle civil infraction, as the likes of Don Lemon, among others, believe that to be the same, that it's just some little minor, just like a traffic ticket. You know, that's the brain dead propaganda that they're peddling around. Defiant L's U.S. Attorney for California, Bill Essely, says Democrats in Sacramento are working hard to pass bills for illegals. The dirty little secret is they want the flow of illegal immigrants. And like I've already said a bunch of times, and I'm sure everybody else could probably agree, the only reason they really want these illegal immigrants is to add more congressional seats for the Democrats.
I think one of the most offensive things, my parents are immigrants. They immigrated here lawfully. There's a lot of immigrants in California. The president's wife is an immigrant. And they never mention the word illegal. They always say immigrant community. And I just find that particularly offensive, especially for people like my parents who did it the right way. They came here, they took the citizenship exam. I remember my mom studying for the test and learning about the branches of government, everything. They never want to distinguish between legal and illegal immigrants. And I find that particularly offensive. But you're right. The dirty little secret is they want the flow of illegal immigrants. It fuels, well, you could talk about it politically, why for census reporting and other reasons, states like California need that population inflow because everyone else is getting out of the state. And then when you go to Sacramento, this is like the protected, oppressed group of the day. And so all their bills every day is like, how do we protect illegal immigrants? How do we get more lawyers for them? How do we get them more services? How do we get them free down payment assistance to buy a home? I'm not joking. That was a bill when I was in Sacramento. They wanted to allow illegal immigrants to access down payment assistance to buy a home.
Yeah, of course they do.
I was like, how do they even get a loan?
All the benefits that the middle class will not
apparently
get.
You can get a
but
loan with a TIN number, which I found out. But again, people like my mom, she's not getting down payment assistance. She's not getting all these things. She's working.
Ridiculous.
Yes, the legal immigrants and the actual Americans are not getting that type of assistance.
Correct.
But the assistance is given to people who committed a crime to get here.
Correct.
Absolutely. And just like we're going to get to here in just a minute with regard to Mayor Mamdani of New York City wanting to build hundreds of thousands of affordable housing, something of which the middle class will not have access to. Anytime Democrats say anything about whether if it's low income or affordable, they've pivoted away from saying the word low income, and they've been saying affordable because it conveys what sounds like something that the middle class will have access to, but we're not. No, it only pertains to low income. So anytime Democrats say anything that has to do with affordable, they're talking about those who are, well, I would call victims of the welfare state. You know, the ones who have been effectively brainwashed into being dependent on the government and not wanting to, engage in any hard work and saving their own money and getting ahead in life and so on. But yeah, it's absolutely insane that they're doing that. Trying to push that crap in California. Down payments for homes by illegal immigrants. And from Tim Poole, he says, use rent control to inhibit economic activity and the ability of owners to fix problems, then attack the owners for not fixing the problems, and then seize their property because they didn't fix the problems. That is communism. And I think he raises a pretty good point with that. So this is from End Wokeness. It begins. New York City Mayor Zohran Mamdani unveils a plan to transfer ownership from landlords to the community, to nonprofits and the like. So let's have a listen to this.
When necessary, we will take aggressive legal action to remove negligent owners and property managers. And for buildings that have suffered chronic neglect, we will work to transfer ownership to responsible stewards.
So much for private property rights. Good stewards.
Stewards
Who
that
determines
include community
who's a good
land
steward?
trusts, nonprofits,
left-wing organizations,
or even
in other
the
words.
tenants themselves.
Eventually, the tenants themselves, okay, well then, would they be responsible for upkeeping the place? Because they probably won't be upkeeping the property because, you know, it's a long-standing, you know, proven fact that if somebody is given something, especially something like a house or a car, if it's just given to them, then most people, they don't take good care of it because they didn't work for it. And they tend to treat what they didn't work for like shit. So I will repost that because I was yapping a bit during the video. So you can have a look at that. There's a direct link below to my profile in the description. It'll take you directly to this video, and that'll be the easy way. So, of course, that's happening in New York City, seizing private property because it's... Look, there's videos on YouTube, and I've seen videos of landlords in New York City where they say it is extremely hard to remodel or to install certain things because not only is it extremely expensive in most cases, but you have to go through this crazy long permitting process. And if you don't get something done timely, then the city starts fining you on a daily basis. And of course, the tenants have an overwhelming amount of rights. There's, I think that's probably the case in most, if not all, blue areas where a tenant can just essentially squat in a place for years before they're finally forced out. All right, so anyway, moving on to townhall.com. 60% of the homeless in Los Angeles aren't even from Los Angeles. Really? I mean, that was in a question mark, so maybe that's not.
60% of the people right now in LA that are on the streets are not from Los Angeles. You want to know why? Because scam rehabs, scam NGOs, scam medic, they're bringing these people here to make money off them, and they throw them on the street when the money runs out, and they get a new one. So again, as mayor, I'm stopping this scam. There will be plenty of beds. We need to put these people in nature, connect, ground, healing, and the amount of people that are here to put the money into it. I'm not going to need our tax money. There's a lot of people that want to help people that know they can't help these people because the NGOs are just scamming their money. But if there's a real solution.
He's talking about the homeless in Los Angeles, where over 60% of them aren't even from LA. I hear this idea of putting the homeless in nice facilities outside of LA, and the way he's describing it honestly sounds like a miracle idea.
Well, and also, by the way, over $130,000 per homeless person. That's how much money that they have spent in the state of California, just California, on the homeless problem. And it amounts to over $35 billion. And this is over the last 5-6 years. So has it fixed the homeless problem? No, it's only made it worse. It's only attracted more homeless people.
I was born and raised in Los Angeles and lived there for 30 years. And it's changed dramatically. It wasn't always like how it is now, where parts of the city have been completely given up on.
Yeah, dude, I've only been to LA once in my life. My sister used to live out there. And I went out there for a couple of weeks to visit her. This was in 2014, and it wasn't all that bad. I mean, like we went to certain areas that were a little sketchy, and I saw like maybe a couple of tents here and there. Nothing like what I've been seeing over the last few years. It's like an absolute living nightmare in LA. Even going to the Santa Monica Pier. I went out there in Venice Beach. Really nice. There were some homeless people just laying around here and there. Like, by some, I mean a dozen, maybe 2 dozen. Maybe they weren't even homeless. Maybe they're just hippies. I don't know. But there weren't any tents or anything like that. And now it's gotten so bad, there are hundreds and hundreds of tents, and they had to close the public bathroom facilities because people kept sleeping in them.
Homeless. And these homeless aren't just down on their luck either. They're drug addicts who often act very aggressively. I was chased by a homeless person before in West LA. But the idea of putting them somewhere in nature where they can heal, ground, and learn to be a person again? I mean, that to me is actual compassion. And sounds like a fantastic idea. I totally believe Spencer when he says a lot of people want to privately put money into this. Lots of wealthy people in LA really miss the old city where it was safe and free of drug addicts roaming the streets. Under the current mayor, Karen Bass, the city has significantly changed and gone incredibly downhill. I think this idea that Spencer has proposed seems like a total breath of fresh air and something a lot of Angelinos would be open to trying.
Yeah, well, and I've seen the show Intervention before. It would seem that those who are addicted to substances, the best thing you can do for them is remove them far away from their environment, even out of the state, as far away, and not forever, but for what, 3 months, 6 months, maybe a year, depending on how severe their addiction is. And from Red Pill Bot, imagine having to prove that you are vaccinated to be able to eat food outdoors. Wait, that actually happened. Pure insanity. Remember the COVID era? Not sure if this is in the US though, to be fair. Yeah, different language, okay. I didn't have a chance to check it out, but still. I'm sure it got this bad in New York. Remember the vaccine passport? Show us your papers. Sound familiar? Yep, crazy. All right, well, we got the idea. I want to play it over and over again. From Libs of TikTok, Daily Mail got a brutal reality check. Thank goodness for community notes. And they shared this image from Daily Mail. The YMCA in a liberal city finally cracks down with new rules after a trans woman exposed her pre-operation privates in a female locker room. I mean, there's just no limit to just how crazy the framing gets. And the readers added context they thought people might like to know. That's called a penis. Pre-op organs, or privates. They didn't even say organs, they said they're pre-op privates. And rapid response 47, you're an idiot, Kevin Liptak from CNN. And he says the threats to his life serve as reminders that radical left lunatics incited by outlets like gutter trash CNN keep trying to murder him. And the president works harder in one day than you have in your entire life. So what they're talking about, obviously, is the headline from CNN Politics. Trump's advanced age and threats to his life serve as reminders of his own mortality. Yeah, I mean, talk about, being able to go without saying. All right, RNC research new voters continue to trust Republicans on crime over Democrats. Republicans nationally are more trusted on crime than Democrats by a 13-point margin.
Why is it such a potent issue? Because who voters trust more on crime? Oftentimes we put up these graphics, Democrats are leading or Trump was leading and then Democrats came ahead. But look at this. Who voters trust more on crime? In October of 2024, Trump was trusted more on crime than Kamala Harris by 4 points. Look at the Republican lead right now, though, in the average of polling. Look at this. Republicans nationally are more trusted on crime than Democrats by a 13-point margin.
Well, I would
it's one of the
certainly
few
hope so.
issues in which
Democrats
the
aren't doing
Republican
shit.
advantage, Johnny B, has actually expanded out from what Trump was looking at a little bit under 2 years ago.
I mean, it's all about the track record. Democrats, the mayors in these big blue cities, they order the police to, okay, you could arrest them, but once they get there, just turn them loose. Well, plus the judges are the same way. They won't even fully charge them because they don't want their crime numbers to look bad. If they arrest somebody or even downgrading the charges to misdemeanors, it makes the crime statistics look a lot better. And from Rep. Burgess Owens, I'm grateful that Black Americans are waking up and realizing the Democratic Party has always been willing to sacrifice my community for power. Use, abuse, and discard. Been doing it for decades. The president and the House GOP have brought in more wins to Black Americans in the last year than ever in the history of the Democratic Party. School choice for every child, including poor Black families. No tax on tips, no tax on overtime, no tax on Social Security, including Black Americans. A permanent business tax cut, including Black small business owners. $1,000 stock Trump accounts for every newborn, including Black babies. All-time record job growth, allowing all Americans, including the Black community, the opportunity to enter the middle class. Democrats voted 100% against everything listed. Against all of these wins for my community. Great work from Pedro Bocalato Rodriguez. Not familiar with him. Let's check him out real quick. Aparicio. And yeah, I don't know. He doesn't have the great check mark. Maybe he's maybe a lawyer or activist or something. And the Daily Signal. And we will check out the Daily Signal real quick. Caucus that claims Congress is silencing Black voices silences Black voices. Almost can't make that up. The Congressional Black Caucus, which frequently complains that Congress is silencing black voices, has denied the application of 4 congressional black voices. The 4 black members of Congress include Reps. Burgess Owens, a Republican of Utah, Wesley Hunt, Republican of Texas, and Byron Donalds, Republican of Florida, running for governor. I think he's going to get my vote. And John James, Republican of Michigan. Unfortunately, for the left, their priorities are power and profit, Owens told the Daily Signal. Owens and Donalds pushed to rename the Capitol's press gallery after civil rights icon Frederick Douglass, a Republican. But caucus members refused to co-sponsor the resolution. Democrats know Douglass was a Republican, Owens said. They don't stand up for the things that really should make a difference. They stand up for everything the Democratic Party wants, which means the black community is not always in a good place. Well, look, you could ask, I think not any, but I would say most Democrats just walking around out in public, if you asked them, like, which political party did Abraham Lincoln belong to? Which party do you think they're going to say? Owens, who sits in the House Education and Workforce Committee, said the Congressional Black Caucus will advocate against the things that could strengthen the black community, such as education. That means they are going to vote against school choice, he said. Our kids are going down so fast, so far, because they're not getting the right education. The Black Caucus doesn't want school choice to happen because the Democratic Party doesn't want that to happen. No, they don't. They want segregation. That's what the Democrats want. They've always wanted that. Owens said he grew up in the 1960s Deep South, where his community was doing well and people believed in faith, family, and the free market. Yeah, like a parallel economy back in the day, having to deal with the Southern Democrats. However, he added, the left doesn't value those ideals today. Marxists and socialists hate faith. They hate family and free market education because that sense of independence takes away their power and ability to make profit. Yeah, they hate individualism. They hate pulling yourself up by your bootstraps. When they make profit on people's misery, that's a big business. Yeah, exactly. That's why they want to expand the welfare state. I got into a back and forth with Google AI. Sometimes I do that over the weekend if I'm just bored with downtime. And Google did actually tell me that one of the primary objectives of the Democratic Party is to expand the welfare state, which, of course, we all already know that. I mean, it's crystal clear that they're wanting to do that, trying to get more and more people dependent on the government. Because even if they, threaten to take away those benefits, all you got to do is, no, you got my vote, you got my vote. Anyway, Owens added, they allow people not to feel good about themselves, feel hopeless, feel desperate, then they depend on you. And when people have that kind of mindset and they have no concept of what it is to believe in God or have empathy, they'll do everything selfishly. The Congressional Black Caucus is pushing legislation against young black athletes to avoid playing college sports for universities in the South as a method of retaliating against states that redrew congressional maps. Yep, I believe we covered that about a week or so ago right here on The Swamp. Owens, who was the 3rd black athlete to receive a football scholarship from the University of Miami, criticized the effort, saying it's a move by black elitists who want to take the dreams of young black people away so they can keep theirs. And I want to say it was don't quote me on it, but I think it was the NAACP that strongly recommended not applying or accepting invitations by any universities in the states where they redrew their congressional maps. It's ridiculous. The caucus has received criticism for other decisions, including denying membership to Rep. Steve Cohen, Democrat of Tennessee, a white congressman who nevertheless represents the largest black community in Tennessee. Other black conservative members of Congress, such as Donalds and Hunt, claim they were shunned by the caucus because they don't approve of race-based politics. Well, and also it's because they're Republicans. They just hate Republicans. Democrats always use race as a political crutch, Donalds said in an interview with the Daily Signal. Their ideas aren't logical, so what they try to do is use the emotions tied to the history of our country and weaponize those emotions for political gain. It's sick, and it's extremely obvious. I think that's why you're seeing more and more people walk away from the Democratic Party. The Congressional Black Caucus did not respond to the Daily Signal's request for a comment. And that'll be below if you want to read that as well. And from Samantha Cantrell, for a candidate who has to make so many apology videos, pretty disgusting that Graham Plattner can't apologize for saying a wounded American soldier didn't deserve to live. From Town Hall, Graham Plattner dodges a question about his Reddit post saying a wounded American soldier didn't deserve to live.
All right. Graham Plattner, do you stand behind your comments that a wounded American soldier didn't deserve to live? Graham Plattner, do you stand behind your comments that a wounded American soldier didn't deserve to live? Do you still feel that way, Graham Plattner? No answer?
I wonder if this is the same guy, like the same journalist that goes out there. It sounds like it might be, but there's somebody who like approaches him in front. I don't know if that was his campaign office or what have you, but there's been videos of him walking into his campaign office where they're throwing very like similar questions, like the Nazi tattoo, for example, and he never talks to him. Never says a word. And Tim Scott, South Carolina, early voting kicks off today. On Memorial Day, we reflected on the sacrifice of those who gave their lives for our freedom. Today, all of us have a responsibility to exercise that freedom and vote. So let's hear it from Tim Scott, South Carolina.
Every single South Carolinian to vote. Why? Because yesterday, Memorial Day, we celebrated the sacrifice, the ultimate sacrifice. Today, we invest in the future of this country by taking the responsibility. Yesterday's sacrifice, today, responsibility. Let's go vote.
Amen. Vote responsibly. Know who you're voting for. Do your homework. Republicans, the Democrats, why'd you delete your post politicizing the deaths of fallen service members? And this apparently came out from the Democrats, and they allegedly deleted it. Democrats, 6 hours. Okay, so this isn't exactly 6 hours ago. That's just on the screenshot. Today, we honor the American heroes who made the ultimate sacrifice in Trump's war with Iran. Remembering the Americans who have died in Trump's war with Iran. So yeah, I would say that's definitely politicizing their deaths, which is not cool, Democrats. And Chairman Joe Gruters also piggybacking off of this, using Memorial Day to politically exploit fallen service members is appalling and disgraceful. One of the most disgusting posts I have ever seen. And it says this post is unavailable. There you go. Doesn't exist. So they did appear to have taken it down. Let's head on to the next from the White House. So we're going to get into some of the Memorial Day events that happened. I'm not going to get too far into the weeds. I just grabbed a few highlights from what happened over Memorial Day. God bless the United States military and all of our fallen soldiers. President Trump on Memorial Day, we salute them, we exalt them, and we thank them for all that we have.
Today here at Arlington, a very special place that held burial grounds, battlefields across the country. And around the world, we unite in solemn observance. With reverent hearts, we honor those who fell so that our republic might stand, those who died so that our nation could live, those who gave up their sacred light on earth so that the sublime light of American freedom would shine forever and ever.
Amen.
This Memorial Day, we salute them.
Looks like.
We exalt them. And we thank them for all that we have, and for all that they gave. They gave everything. God bless our fallen heroes.
Of course, Secretary of War Pete Hegseth was up there. Also, Vice President JD Vance. And I believe I grabbed a clip from both of them. From the DOW, Department of War Rapid Response, Secretary of War. So these are... okay, so this is a big quote, so we'll just hear him say the quote in the video.
This day began as Decoration Day, when widows and orphans and other mourners placed flowers and ribbons on some 20,000 graves. They were soldiers
Oh no,
once.
What's going on? Hold on. All right, I don't know what's going on. Technical difficulties with this freaking new computer.
To battle, they sang the lines of the hymn. In the beauty of the lilies, Christ was born across the sea, with a glory in his bosom which transfigures you and me. As he died to make men holy, let us die to make men free, while God is marching on. The mourners of that first Decoration Day knew what we know on this Memorial Day, that these graves are more than names and dates with a dash in between. Each grave marker is a story. The young American on the battlefield away from home, he stayed in contact with loved ones by writing letters. In World War II, they called it victory mail.
Yeah,
GIs wrote of coming home and watching sunsets again, of having a cigarette and a beer with their buddies, going to football games and on dates, loving their wives, seeing their children grow tall and great. Different wars, still the same letters today. Those we remember today will never get those sunsets. They'll never get those dates. They'll never get to raise their children. Instead, they were delivered from the battlefields into the arms of a loving Lord and Savior. Their families and their buddies greeting them home with a folded triangle of stars, and the piercing sound of a soul bugle playing taps.
Yeah, I know about the V-mail because my ex's grandfather, he served in World War II in Germany, infantry. He got the Purple Heart, was wounded fighting the Nazis, and he sent V-mail to my ex's grandmother, and they got that out at some point when we were visiting, and they showed some of the letters that he sent to her, and the military had opened up the letters because I guess they go through and they inspect everything and make sure that there's nothing sensitive that's in there, but they would cut out every time that he mentioned a location where he was, like near the town of whatever, they would take like a razor blade and they would actually like cut the words out of the papers. So there were some of the letters that she would open up and there's just like these little squares that are cut out all throughout the letter. It was wild. Anyway, so from the White House, we remember the fallen. We honor their sacrifice. We cherish the freedom they paid for with their lives. Memorial Day 2026, Arlington National Cemetery. It's not a video, it's just an image of them visiting the tomb of the unknown soldier. And from the White House, all of us owe a debt. That we owe a debt to the people that went overseas and gave their lives so the United States might be prosperous and peaceful and free.
I believe that the most important lesson of Memorial Day is perhaps that all of us owe a debt. That we owe a debt to the people who went overseas and gave their lives that the United States might be prosperous and peaceful and free. That we owe a debt to the people who put on a uniform knowing they might never come back. And indeed, today we pay tribute to those who never came back.
Amen. As I've been saying for the last couple of months, at the end of every episode, God bless the troops. And from the U.S. Department of the Interior, during Memorial Day weekend, USBR, the Bureau of Reclamation, joined leaders from Nevada and Arizona at Hoover Dam to honor the men and women who gave their lives in service to our country and help launch the Road to America 250 with one of the most ambitious patriotic installations ever displayed. Look at that, man. The stars and the stripes. They even got the stars that are projected over on the sides. Very cool. And that American flag, it's got to be absolutely enormous. I haven't been to Hoover Dam, but I can only imagine how large it is when you're standing there in person. I'm sure that flag's probably, probably at least a couple of few hundred feet tall. It's got to be absolutely enormous. So very cool. They lit up Hoover Dam for Memorial Day. And from the Department of War, this Memorial Day, we honor the service and sacrifice of the brave Americans who gave their lives for this great nation. We will never forget their courage, their devotion, and the freedoms they fought to defend.
In every hour of peril, in every moment of crisis, American warriors have left behind the blessings of home and family to answer their nation's call.
We owe a duty to those who have fallen in war. They have paid a debt we can never repay, and for that, we owe gratitude and remembrance. We owe at least this, to remember their sacrifice and honor their memory year after year. Salute after salute, ceremony after ceremony, parade after parade, prayer after prayer, that by our remembrance, we keep lit the eternal flame. God bless our warriors, and may God bless our fallen.
Absolutely. God bless every one of them. And rolling on. It's always interesting to watch some like old war footage. Something that YouTube has tons, like probably thousands of hours worth of war footage out there. There's even YouTube channels of the elderly who served in World War II and Korea, Vietnam War, and there's entire YouTube channels dedicated to them just giving their story. And some of them are like 20 minutes long. Other ones, they'll go on for an hour, hour and a half, just telling a story or a series of stories from when they were either just in the service or if they were serving in one of the wars. And from Hondo, honoring the American soldier, oh wait, hold on. Never mind. Let's go back. That was actually in the comments section. Anyway, here we go. Homeland Security. Heroes. U.S. Coast Guard personnel rescued 8 people in Santa Cruz after they were trapped in a cave by rising tides. The extraordinary bravery and selfless service of these Coast Guard heroes embody the best of what it means to be an American.
In our national lead, never before seen.
It did it again, man. Okay, I disabled hardware acceleration in my Braves settings. I had that already enabled in my last computer, so hopefully that fixed the problem. I think it might have. Guess we'll see.
In our national lead, never before seen footage shows a daring rescue near Santa Cruz, California, to save a group trapped in a cave. One exit out led to a bluff too steep to climb safely. High waters blocked another exit, but 3 people in the group could not swim. The emergency led local firefighters, patrol crews, even the Coast Guard to respond. After some careful maneuvering, crews managed to save all 8 people trapped in the cave. And let's bring in the heroes, the rescue team from the Coast Guard. Thank you so much for being with us. Thomas Sizer, let me start with you first.
CNN
you weren't actually
puts
on
out a
duty
feel-good
when
story.
the emergency call came in. When did you know something was going wrong?
I've got a firefighter friend who was listening
when the Democrats
to
wouldn't give us a
scanner,
paycheck for
and
freaking
he
72 days.
Informed me, and that was, oh man, that was pretty soon after it happened. So I called the aircraft commander, Lieutenant Straits, and as I'm actively throwing my wetsuit on and grabbing some fins and headed to the scene, and I knew we'd be a good asset for this, and I wanted to make sure that if there was a need for us, that we'd be there ready to help the other professional agencies on scene.
Quite fortuitous that you're hanging out with a firefighter friend. Christopher Bernard, 3 of those trapped inside did not know how to swim, and that must have complicated the mission quite a bit.
Yeah, that sucks. Complicated.
Yeah, fortunately, they were kind of trapped on an open beach area, part of that cove, so they weren't able to exit through the cave to get out. But luckily, there was enough area there for us to be able to conduct that voyage off the beach.
Josh Straits, how different is a cave rescue from an open water rescue? I would think it would maybe even be much more dangerous.
Well, is it a cave or is it a
lots
cove?
Of things at play, a lot of hazards that aren't always known. Every cave's different. We do training at our advanced helicopter rescue school, so our rescue swimmers get to do that every 3 years. We do have some techniques that make it a little safer, so we were prepared to do that if necessary, but thankfully we weren't required to do that unless we could recover them from the beach.
Justin Kessinger, what advice do you have for people who are out this summer to avoid being trapped in such a dangerous
Learn
situation?
how to swim, first of all. Everybody should know how to swim.
I would say let people know where you are and make sure that you always have another friend with you.
GPS.
Check what the weather's doing, check what the tide's doing, making sure that you all are safe and know when sunset comes so it can be daylight out and more people are able to see you.
Yeah, I might add, stay away from caves. Matthew Stickle, as I don't need to tell you, helicopters can be difficult to handle. What are some of the challenges you faced during the rescue?
Main challenge was nighttime. It was pretty dark. And definitely the wind was a factor for us. But luckily our partner agencies on scene have the scene pretty well illuminated for us. And it's just all around crew coordination, managing the wind and our power requirements in order to fly safely and get people safely off the beach.
Well, a huge thanks to you all. A job well done. Thank you so much for joining us today.
All right, well, I don't think it was like a full-on cave. Probably a cove or a cavern or something like that. But still, I mean, I'm not trying to downplay their rescue efforts. I mean, it was pretty amazing they were able to rescue them. But yeah, definitely something that everybody should learn how to do, especially with like the younger, the better. Learn how to swim. All right, so U.S. Army meet the Breaker. The bunker rupture and kinetic explosive round is a warhead designed for drone delivery. Recently tested by the U.S. Army infantry drone operators during a live fire demonstration at Redstone Arsenal. Fingers crossed this works. All right. Holy shit. Damn. Blew this whole thing wide up. Way up. Wow, dude. Obviously very slow-mo, but intense. Crazy. All right. Let's roll on to the next one. From Eric Doherty, just in, Iran was struck by the U.S. after the IRGC got caught laying mines in the Strait of Hormuz. The strikes took place in Bandar Abbas, home to a key Iranian base. Missile launch sites were also blasted to smithereens. Fox is reporting this is not an end to the ceasefire. As of right now, Iran doesn't want to go down this road. And according to the U.S. military, it was a defensive measure because, as Eric Doherty suggested, they were allegedly caught laying mines inside the Strait of Hormuz. So we had to respond one way or another. So this is how we responded. So let's get into this.
The border city of Bandar Abbas. That's home to a key Iranian naval and air base along the strait.
Iranian state media also reporting explosions in other cities as well. The attacks coming as intense discussions are underway tonight to end the war in Iran, but a deal is not in place. Iran's top security official declaring tonight, quote, "There will be no retreat." And there's this from President Trump.
These incredible men and women gave their lives to ensure that the world's #1 state sponsor of terror will never have a nuclear weapon. Oh, and they won't.
Oh, and they won't. Yeah, come hell or high water. They can have nuclear weapons. Breaking, the U.S. military has just launched self-defense strikes in southern Iran to protect our troops from Iranian threats. CENTCOM has said per Fox. Pray for the troops. U.S. forces conducted self-defense strikes in southern Iran today to protect our troops from threats posed by Iranian forces. I think we'll probably get the rest of these quotes in here.
I wouldn't say Iran is one of them, to be honest with you, because we have Iran very much under control. We're either going to make a deal or they're going to be decimated. So one way or the other, we win. But we're going to be talking with President Xi about a lot of different things. I would say.
All right, well, there you go. Taking defensive measures. The ceasefire still remains in place, with the exception of that, I don't know, I guess you'd call it, well, not even a hiccup. I mean, they were deliberately laying mines. At least that's what we're being told. From America, Army, airstrike on Iran. Here's some footage. American fighter jets have reportedly destroyed Iranian air bases. More than 200 missile attacks have been carried out on Iran so far. So here's some footage of that. Not sure why there's music. I think it's obvious the sirens are also added in. All right, well, there's no definitive proof that this happened last night or over the weekend, or if this is indeed in Iran. You got to take everything on the X platform with a grain of salt. Even like American military, it's not, they don't have the gray badge, which indicates that they're a government official. They don't have the gold badge, which would suggest that they're a news agency. So, just take it for what you will. Next order, breaking. The United States has carried out a self-defense strikes in Bandar Abbas, Iran, per U.S. Central Command. The strikes targeted missile launch strikes and fast bores attempting to lay mines, CENTCOM has said. Another one from CNN.
Breaking news, explosions rock Iran. U.S. Central Command just confirming that U.S. forces targeted Iranian military facilities responsible for launching a series of attacks against American warships in the Strait of Hormuz. Iranian state media had reported blasts that were heard in the border city of Bandar Abbas. That's home to a key Iranian naval and air base along the strait. Iranian state media also reporting explosions in other cities as well. The attacks coming as intense discussions are underway tonight to end the war in Iran, but a deal is not in place. Iran's top security official declaring tonight, quote, "There will be no retreat."
Yeah, well, I'm sure their economy is certainly in shambles, and every day they're not shipping oil out. The U.S. estimates $500 million is not being infused into the economy because their oil's not being moved. So I know it's a waiting game, but it's coming at kind of a high cost because a lot of people are pissed off about the gas prices. They're getting up there. I'm pretty sure they're over $4.50 a gallon because 20% of the world's oil flows out of the Strait of Hormuz, and it's pretty much being blocked. And it has been for a while, which is why our gas is going up so much. So definitely the sooner they get to a conclusion, the better, needless to say. Iran Observer just in IRGC statement on clashes with U.S. forces. Quote, last night, the United States violated the ceasefire and we shot down one of its MQ-9 drones and fired interceptor missiles at an F-35 fighter jet and an RQ-4 drone. We will respond decisively to continued violations of the ceasefire by the United States. And that's it. There's no video or anything like that. So Iran Observer, again, grain of salt, same spiel. And rapid response from President Trump's Truth Social. If Iran surrenders, admits their navy is gone and resting at the bottom of the sea and their air force is no longer with us, and if their entire military walks out of Tehran, weapons dropped and hands held high, each shouting, I surrender, while wildly waving the representative white flag, and if their entire remaining leadership signs all necessary documents of surrender and admit their defeat to the great power and force of the magnificent USA, the failing New York Times, the China Street Journal, Washington the Wall Street Journal, rather. Corrupt and now irrelevant CNN and all other members of the fake news media will headline that Iran had a masterful and brilliant victory over the United States of America. It wasn't even close. The Democrats and media have totally lost their way. They've gone absolutely crazy. President DJT. And that was, okay, so that was Rapid Response. They posted this 6 hours ago. This is almost a copy and paste post that he posted and that I read here on the Swamp roughly a week ago also. So there for a minute, I thought I was reading the exact same post again, and it's possible. I don't think in the last post he said Democrats. That's something that he's picked up, I think a little more recently than that. But anyway, we got one more. The enriched uranium nuclear dust will either be immediately turned over to the United States to be brought home and destroyed, or preferably in conjunction and coordination with the Islamic Republic of Iran, destroyed in place or at another acceptable location with the Atomic Energy Commission or its equivalent being witness to this process and event. Thank you for your attention to this matter, President DJD. And from Eric Dougherty, another one. Just now, President Trump is preparing to convene his entire cabinet at a rare Camp David trip tomorrow. Trump very infrequently goes there, and no further details were released. 47 is cooking something, and we have an update on this, but we'll play the video.
Forces launching what CENTCOM is calling self-defense strikes, hitting boats and missile sites in southern Iran. CENTCOM taking defensive action to keep U.S. troops out of harm's way, while President Trump's negotiating team appears positive that they are moving closer to finalizing a peace deal. Meanwhile, Fox can confirm that the president will host his cabinet at Camp David tomorrow for a high-level meeting. Though the White House confirmed the gathering, no additional details have been offered, and we will bring you any information as soon as things come in.
All right. Sounds ominous. It sounds dramatic. Sounds like something's about to happen. From Elizabeth Troutman Mitchell, cabinet meeting moved from Camp David to the White House. This is from 4 hours ago. And from Rapid Response, based on the possible bad weather conditions tomorrow, we will be having our cabinet meeting in the White House, and we'll be postponing the cabinet trip to Camp David. Thank you for your attention to this matter, President Donald J. Trump. So it seems to me like they're still going to have the same meeting. It's just not going to be in Camp David. All right, U.S. Embassy, India. Day 3 of Secretary Marco Rubio's visit to India celebrated the country's rich culture and heritage, from admiring the architectural splendor of the Taj Mahal to exploring the history of Amber Fort. The day reflected India's deep historical legacy and vibrant culture traditions that continue to inspire the world. All right, let's hope this works. Woo! Oh my God, that's loud, sorry. All right, man. I'm digging that music. I'm an EDM fan. All right, so we got another one. This time from Secretary Marco Rubio. Today, Dr. Jai Shankar, Dr. S. Jai Shankar, and I signed a bilateral critical minerals framework, marking a milestone in the strategic partnership between the U.S. and India. That's fantastic news. Very glad that they did that. This sets us on a path toward reliable and resilient mineral supply chains, reinforcing key objectives established by the president, because we're trying to get away from our reliance on China, because I'm sure it's not the same percentage that it was last November when it was last reported, at least to my knowledge, but China, they refine 89% of the world's critical rare earth minerals. So they effectively have a dominant control over the rare earth minerals, at least the refining process and the distribution of rare earth minerals globally, not just the United States, but for all the other countries. So securing a trade deal with rare earth minerals with India is nothing short of fantastic. I'm glad they did that. Dylan Johnson, representing a third of the world's GDP and nearly 2 billion people. The Quad is a powerful collective of nations focused not just on talk, but bold and innovative action. So that appears to be what Australia and India and Japan and the United States, although that's New Zealand, but it's probably Australia. Indo-Pacific Maritime Surveillance Cooperation Initiative. This initiative will leverage maritime surveillance in the Indo-Pacific to enhance information sharing. And let's see, Indo-Pacific Maritime Dominance Awareness Initiative. Let's see, commercial maritime domain awareness data to countries across the Indo-Pacific. And today, the Quad leaders announced plans to partner with Fiji to advance the country's port infrastructure and is a concrete step toward addressing insufficient port capacity across the Pacific Islands. And Quad Quad Critical Minerals Framework. This will guide the partners to leverage economic policy tools and coordinate investment to strengthen critical minerals supply chains. In the Quad Initiative on Indo-Pacific Energy Security, each country will leverage their unique energy resources and capabilities to strengthen regional energy resilience. The Department of Energy will host Quad partners later this year for a fuel security forum. And the United States is committed to the Quad. And as Secretary Rubio shared, his first engagement as Secretary was with our incredible partners in this important partnership. And by the way, Dylan Johnson is the Assistant Secretary of State for Global Public Affairs with the State Department. And all good news. All sounds good. And let's rock and roll. See what else we got. Secretary Marco Rubio. It was great to meet with Australian Foreign Minister Senator Wong on the margins of the Quad Foreign Ministers meeting in New Delhi today. We're making sure our alliance and partnership benefits Americans and Australians alike, and our collaboration through the Quad is a force for a more stable, secure, prosperous world. There you have it. One more from Secretary Rubio. Under President Trump, we have ushered in a new golden age for U.S.-Japan relations that upholds a free and open Indo-Pacific and brings peace and prosperity to the region. I met with Japanese Foreign Minister Motegi today to talk about keeping the momentum as we work together bilaterally and through the Quad. And we got a couple images with the meets and greets. And from Ambassador Sergio Gore, I believe, the U.S. Ambassador to India. It was an absolute honor to host my friend Secretary Rubio in India for the past 4 days. We held productive meetings with Prime Minister Modi, External Affairs Minister Dr. Jaishankar, and NSA Doval. We traveled through Kolkata, New Delhi, Agra, and Jaipur, celebrated America's 250th birthday, and capped the visit with a highly successful Quad meeting. America's foreign policy is in outstanding hands with Secretary Marco Rubio at the helm. And that's just an image of Secretary Rubio boarding the plane. Was that Air Force Two? That would be my best guess. Probably is. And let's head on to the next. Secretary of State Marco Rubio. The straits have to be open. What's happening there is illegal. It's unsustainable for the world, and it's unacceptable.
Well, the straits have to be open. They're going to be open one way or the other.
Turn it up.
They need to be open. What's happening there is unlawful. It's illegal. It's unsustainable for the world. It's unacceptable. I don't know of any country in the world that does it. The Russians are not in favor of the tolling system. The Chinese are not in favor of the tolling system. And there's no country in the world that's in favor of the tolling system except the regime in Iran. So that's not acceptable. That cannot happen. The straits need to be open, unimpeded, without tolls. And obviously that needs to happen immediately as soon as nations agree to.
All right, apologies for the sound. That was all over the place. Let me turn that down. I had it damn near maxed out. So yeah, just pretty much echoing what President Trump is saying. Got to keep it open. No tolls. None of that nonsense. Stop dropping mines in the Strait of Hormuz because you'll be met with deadly force if you do that. And another one for Secretary Rubio. The president is going to make a good deal or no deal.
The president's expressed his desire to make it. He's either going to make a good deal or no deal. So, on that, everyone should be assured. But that may take a little while. At least a few more days. The president's expressed his desire.
Okay. And rolling on. Rapid Response 47, Secretary Rubio on Iran. Our position is well stated. It's either going to be a good deal or there isn't going to be one. I think we already heard this, but it's a different angle, so I'm sure it'll probably sound a lot better.
Well, look, I think our position is well stated. The president had a very important, historic call just a couple days ago with a number of leaders from the region. I think there's strong alignment and agreement on what a preliminary draft should look like. I think that, like anything with something like this, it's going to take a couple days to settle on, even down to the disagreements over a word, sentence. So we'll have to work through that. If there's going to be a deal, we're going to have to work through that. But this is, it's either going to be a good deal or there isn't going to be one.
Yep, that's it. That's the way it's got to be. The White House task force to eliminate fraud. This is just the beginning. Watch. Vice President highlights the tremendous early success of the White House Fraud Task Force in identifying and eliminating fraud, and this is just the beginning.
In just 2 months, we exposed billions of dollars in benefits that have been stolen from the American people. We referred over $22 billion in fraudulent small business loans back to the Treasury for collection. We deferred more than $1.3 billion in fraudulent Medicaid reimbursements that were coming from various states, particularly California. We put a 6-month hold on enrollments for new hospice and home health care providers because so many of the newer hospice providers were not actually providing hospice services, but were just focused on fraud. So we're going to cut that out for a little bit and try to get to a place where we can actually certify that the people providing hospice services are actually providing those very necessary and important services. We recovered taxpayer funds from the $135 billion stolen after the floodgates were open in the immediate aftermath of COVID. We have found $6.3 billion in suspected fraudulent government contracts, which were mostly awarded during the last administration, and that has stopped.
Of course.
And finally, we blocked $60 million in student aid fraud that should have gone to young people trying to get an education, but instead we're going to fraudsters.
That's happening too.
I think the theme here of the Anti-Fraud Task Force up to this point has really been that we're protecting two classes of victims here. We're protecting the American taxpayers who shouldn't have their money stolen by fraudsters. And of course, we're protecting the people who need these services. Fraud is not a victimless crime. This is not somebody gets to make some money for violating the law, and otherwise it's not a big deal. This is people who rely on critical services, students who rely on student loan services, sick people who rely on hospice care, a number of small businesses who rely on the availability of these loans so that they can grow their business and hire people. All of these people, all of our fellow Americans have been taken advantage by fraudsters, and the task force is here to stop it.
Yeah,
in
man.
just 2 months,
good. Very good. Stay on top of it. Get our money back and tighten it up, especially with the blue states, with all of their obstructing, refusing to release information pertaining to SNAP benefits and all that other nonsense because they don't want to show the real numbers. They want to see how much that they're giving to people who should not be getting those benefits, among all other reasons. Fraudsters, namely. And the Vice President hosts state attorneys general at the White House for a White House Fraud Task Force meeting. The resources of the federal government, while vast, can be supplemented and aided by a lot of people represented here today.
But first, let me say thanks to all of you for being here. Very gratified and proud of the fact that we have 15 different state AG offices represented here today who are focused on helping us in combating fraud all over our government. And let me be very brief here about what we're trying to do here. So one of the things we've realized in combating fraud is that the resources of the federal government, while vast, can be supplemented and aided by a lot of the people who know best what's happening in their states, which is the attorneys general represented here today. And they have a lot of legal resources. They have a lot of prosecutorial resources. And of course, they have the desire to prevent fraud as much as we do. And so I appreciate these leaders for being here because we're going to work together, state and federal government, to try to combat fraud. I'm particularly gratified here that this is not a partisan effort. I believe we have a couple of representatives from the attorney generals in Connecticut and Oregon. And as I've said repeatedly, this should not be a partisan effort. Everybody should care about fraud.
Absolutely not. It's our money.
Everybody should care about rooting out fraud. Everybody should care about saving the American taxpayers' money. And importantly, everybody should care about actually protecting the programs that only work and are only properly funded if the money funding those programs isn't being stolen by fraudsters. So
again, I wouldn't be laying blame exclusively at Democrat states either, because I'm sure there's fraud happening in every single state, red states included. And the blue states just tend to be more populated. So of course the numbers are going to be like staggeringly higher than they would be in many, if not most, red states. So yeah, it's not about the politics. It's about clamping down on the fraud and saving some of our money. And maybe we can, slow the pace of the federal deficit from skyrocketing well over $40 trillion, which I think it's supposed to break $40 trillion this year, by the way. I think that amounts to, I'm trying to think the last time I added it up. For every American man, woman, and child, each and every one of us owes like well over $100,000. It's like $120,000 for every single American man, woman, and child, just to get the debt back down to zero, just a flat line. All right. Anyway, so let's see. A. Ferguson. Okay, so he's the head of the FTC, the chairman for the FTC. Is it Andrew Ferguson? Andrew Ferguson. So we'll hear what he has to say.
I just want to remind all of us why this really matters. This isn't just about restoring social trust in America. This is about saving these programs so that your constituents who have paid for them can actually use them when they need them. Fraud is bleeding these programs dry. We've seen countless of examples in this task force of Americans trying to use their benefits they've been paying for decades, only to find out that some fraudster has stolen those benefits and they don't have they're not available to them anymore. Just last week, the Department of Justice, under Assistant Attorney General McDonald's leadership, indicted 15 fraudsters in Minnesota. There, the fraud had gotten so bad that a major program designed to protect Americans from homelessness, including veterans, had to be shut down. It was so riddled with fraud, it could not be maintained. Your constituents are American citizens paying for these programs. They expect these programs to be there when they need them.
And the leaders don't want to look bad.
Unless we stop the fraud, these programs will not be around in their current form for your constituents to use when they hit hard times, just as they've wanted to make them available for their neighbors in the same circumstances.
And look, frankly, everyone should be held responsible for this. It shouldn't be given any kind of get-out-of-jail-free cards or anything. Like, everybody knows that fraud is a thing, and we do have systems already in place. We have for many years to combat fraud in the government and oversight and regulations, and they just decided to look the other way. They don't want to appear racist, or they don't want to appear like misogynists and xenophobes, or whatever buzzword you want to use that they end up using over there. So the vice president, hosts, attorneys general. Okay, I think we already did that one. And let's roll on to this one. Okay, I think we did. Okay, hold on. Let me just double check. Okay, no, we didn't do this one yet. So the only way to defeat the fraudsters is by making sure they know that if they try to commit fraud, they will be pursued, arrested, prosecuted, and jailed.
When I was Solicitor General of Virginia, I served alongside many of you and fought against the Biden administration to protect our border, our religious liberty, and our right to keep and bear arms. And today we're here to talk about another problem that we need to partner with you to fight, that the Obama administration and Biden administration made much worse, which is widespread fraud against our benefits programs.
Looking the other way.
Our benefits programs and our whole society was designed for a high-trust people. The American people rightly expect that their fellow citizens will deal with them and with the government honestly and fairly.
Yeah, a lot of people are saying to shut it all down at this point.
Until the last decade or so, shelves in our grocery stores and our pharmacies were open and readily accessible. We weren't accustomed to seeing security guards outside of banks or jewelry stores.
No,
we didn't have to worry about organized retail theft or industrial scale scammers of the type you all protect your citizens from every day. Nor did we have to worry about piratical fraudsters raiding our benefits program.
Yeah, they got deodorant
Sadly,
behind lock and key.
that is no longer true.
Freaking candy bars,
It's become clear that huge groups of people in this country are taking advantage of our longstanding culture of trust to enrich themselves at the expense of the American people. I think a brief example would be illustrative. Just this weekend, I was shopping at a big home improvement store to buy a drill to do some home improvement. And I had to hit a call button and wait 15 minutes for a sales associate to come unlock a steel cage and a steel padlock to get access to a drill. It's why deodorant is now locked behind plastic windows at pharmacies.
I swear I've not seen this. I swear to God I haven't seen this. That's hilarious that he just happened to choose deodorant. Maybe that was like up in the comments somewhere. Maybe I just just like unknowingly just noticed the word and just went with it. Like the whole steel cage at Lowe's or Home Depot, that's not just in like the worst areas or blue areas. I mean, like a place I live, it's relatively conservative, and like that's the way it's always been when it comes to, items that are multi-hundreds of dollars in any store.
It's why security guards are seen at every store in America. The social trust has evaporated and people are taking advantage of it, and the same is true with our federal benefits programs. Huge segments of the population have decided to take advantage of this generosity and trust of American citizens.
Oh, he is right about that.
And fraud, and billions of dollars each year leave our programs into the hands of pirates, fraudsters, scammers, and gangs who treat American generosity
and Democrats
as
want to
little
expand
more than
all of
a
this.
get-quick-rich scheme.
Mamdani wants to seize private properties. No, of course the fraud's not going to get worse.
American people are right to long for a period where we could trust each other. But while we are living this way, the government must act now to protect American citizens and their social programs. That is why President Trump has focused on this issue, and that is why the president selected the vice president of the United States, a man who sits atop the rest of the government to coordinate the entire federal government's efforts.
Just
to
another
stop
mess
fraud
Republicans
in
have to
all
clean
of our
up.
benefits programs.
Constantly having to clean up messes.
Two things. First, we have
Acting
to
as a
build
speed bump for the
protections within
Democrats.
the programs to make sure taxpayer dollars don't enter the hands of
But
fraudsters.
to be fair, the fraud happens in red
That's
states
what the
too.
task force under the vice president's leadership has been doing for months. With our agency partners, we've uncovered tens of billions of dollars in fraud and prevented billions from going out the door into the pockets of fraudsters.
Yeah, keep
For
it up.
agencies that had robust
how big
anti-fraud
this number
systems
can
that the
get.
Biden administration turned off, the task force and the agencies have turned them back on and prevented billions of dollars from leaving the agencies. And for the agencies that didn't have those systems, the task force has come alongside them and harnessed the power of American AI innovation to build automated systems to keep that money in the agency. It saves thousands of man-hours every year and billions of dollars that otherwise would exit the agencies and enter the hands of fraudsters. But the second thing we must do, and the reason we brought you all here, is that we must restore deterrence by finding, prosecuting, and punishing fraudsters. Unless fraudsters believe that there will be consequences attached with attacking America's benefits programs, they will keep doing it. Our fraud detection systems will stop much of it, but cannot stop it all. The only way to defeat the fraudsters is by making sure that they know, every single one of them, that if they try to commit fraud, they will be pursued, arrested, prosecuted, and jailed. And that is why the Department of Justice has created the brand new National Fraud Enforcement Division to coordinate the federal government's anti-fraud law enforcement efforts, along with the task force and the Homeland Security Council.
All right. Yeah, all good news, man. What are the oranges for? So, yeah, there's also a lot of people who were forgiven these COVID loans for whether this their businesses or what have you, including, the name of the band escapes me. It was like this band that everybody's heard of, worth hundreds of millions of dollars, and they got this like COVID loan because they had to cancel their tour because COVID, and it was for something like $6 million, and the government just promptly forgave all of it. And it's not just him. There's even YouTubers. There's even YouTubers that took out these massive loans from COVID, and they said that they disrupted their business because it was considered non-essential, and the government basically wiped them all clean. Just said, nope, it's all forgiven. You don't have to pay all that back. So, I mean, I know that's not strictly speaking fraud, but some elements are. I mean, I would say certainly as someone who's a YouTuber that has, a coffee company, for example, getting $20,000, $30,000 worth of COVID loans is a little bit ridiculous, if not full on, maybe not fraudulent, but, I don't know. I'll just leave it at that. Ridiculous. Maybe you know who I'm talking about. All right, Kelly Loeffler. Earlier this month, the SBA helped secure charges for one man who applied for 7 different COVID loans using a false Social Security number. And of course, Kelly Loeffler, she's with the Small Business Administration. While our Office of Inspector General, this agency is working around the clock to investigate fraud and hold offenders accountable. This is from the SBA.gov. Small Business Administration. Shelby County man charged in multi-million-dollar COVID-19 loan fraud scheme. I got to size this up. It's going to be annoying for the next week or two. Every website that I visit, I have to size back up because it'll save it, moving forward. Anyway, so Shelby man has been charged with defrauding the Small Business Administration's Paycheck Protection Program, PPP, Economic Injury Disaster Loan Program, or the EIDL. It's all like COVID-era loans, and Restaurant Revitalization Fund, RRF, by unlawfully obtaining funds intended to provide COVID-19 pandemic relief to eligible operating businesses, announced the acting U.S. Attorney Catherine L. Crosby. A 13-count indictment filed in U.S. District Court charges Stanley Mark Hill, 61 years old, of Helena, Alabama, with wire fraud and aggravated identity theft. According to the indictment, from at least May of 2020 to May of 21, Hill applied for 7 fraudulent PPP, EIDL, and RRF loans from the SBA, 6 of which were funded. Hill submitted loan applications including false information about the revenues and costs of goods sold by his alleged businesses and falsified documentation supporting the loan applications. The loan requests totaled more than $3 million, of which over $2.5 million was funded. Hill also used the Social Security number of another individual to file 6 of the loan applications without the consent or knowledge of that individual. On April 7th, the Department of Justice announced the creation of the National Fraud Enforcement Division. The core mission of the Fraud Division is to zealously investigate and prosecute those who steal or fraudulently misuse taxpayer dollars. The Department of Justice efforts to combat fraud support President Trump's task force to eliminate fraud, a whole-of-government effort chaired by Vice President JD Vance to eliminate fraud, waste, and abuse within federal benefit programs. The SBA Office of Inspector General and Internal Revenue Service Criminal Investigations investigated this case. Assistant U.S. Attorney Allison J. Garnett is prosecuting the case. An indictment contains only charges. A defendant is presumed innocent unless and until proven guilty, of course. Of course, that should go without saying. And from Sean Parnell, the fake news media has the story wrong again. And Sean Parnell is the assistant to the Secretary of War for Public Affairs and also the Chief Pentagon spokesman and senior advisor to the Secretary of War. Let's see. SpaceX remains a strong and valued partner to the Department of War. The claims in this article are simply not based in reality and do not reflect the close, effective collaboration between our teams. And from David Jeans, this is the man in question, the person who he's talking about. New tensions are rising between the Pentagon and SpaceX over multiple issues, including an episode where Elon Musk's company hiked the price of Starlink and Starshield used to guide strike drones at the start of the Iran war. And of course, it's going to be on Reuters. So I will just link this below. You know, we've already got from a government official that it's a whole bunch of BS, and I don't want to read a whole bunch of BS. So, but at the very least, I'll have it linked if you want to have a look at that. And roll on to the next one. And the link is in the description, of course. And acting AG Todd Blanche, the DOJ Supreme Court win. The Supreme Court yet again reversed the Fourth Circuit, and this time with a unanimous 9-0 decision. As the Department of Justice argued, the Fourth Circuit was wrong to try to rewrite a statute about the process for resolving government employee complaints. This unanimous result reflects a key principle we fight for. Judges should be judges, resolving the case before them, and should never try to seize Congress's role. This opinion sends a clear message. Lower courts must accept that the law is the law, no matter the political controversies of the day, as the Supreme Court rightly emphasized. There you have it. Yeah, judges, they can't be making up their own laws. They just need to have the ability to just enforce what's already on the books. And Caitlin Dorr from, the White House, I think. Yeah, Deputy Assistant to the President and Principal Deputy Communications Director and Head of Digital Strategy. And Caitlin Dorr says, bro, this caption. And from Eric Doherty, awesome. HHS Secretary RFK Jr. just went snake wrangler mode on Dr. Oz's patio. RFK is dressed up for work and is literally holding snakes. Best health secretary ever. And just a couple of weeks ago, he was in an airport. Don't remember the exact airport he was at, but he caught a bird. I don't know if it was a finch. He said the name of the bird, like what it was, but he caught it. Not sure how he caught the bird, but he caught it. So he was handling a bird. Now he's handling a couple of snakes.
Yeah.
I think they're black racers.
So what are they?
Let's say, dude, they'll bite. They're not poisonous, but they'll bite.
Sex, so what were they?
They're black snakes.
Yeah, black snakes, black racers. I have black racers living underneath my sunroom patio right now. They've been out of there for years.
Okay. Are they biting?
Yeah.
Honey, let it go. Oh my God.
Oh yeah, of course they're gonna bite.
The mouths are huge.
Yeah, they can unhinge their jaw. All right. Well, there you go. A couple of black racer snakes. Yeah, like I said, I see them in my backyard all the time because there's like a little opening underneath, like my back room. I have like this little sunroom, and it was added onto the house like many years ago. And yeah, there's like this like crawl space underneath there, and there's black racers that have been living underneath there forever. All right. From RFK Jr. And from Michelle Vicerina, Florida residents, state officials want you to take out your phone and film your entire house before June 1st when hurricane season officially begins. Governor Gone Wild, let's see, who's this? Blaise Ingoglia, the CFO of Florida. He says, quote, document everything because of a hurricane strikes and you have to make an insurance claim. There is no way the insurer will say that stuff wasn't there. That might have been a typo, that stuff was there maybe. So anyway, let's have a quick look at this.
If you live in Florida, state officials want you to take your phone and do this immediately before June 1st. Hurricane season is officially days away, and Florida CFO Blaise Ingoglia says it's a matter of when, not if, a storm hits.
Well, we can always sit there and hope and cross our fingers that we're not going to have another hurricane hit, but it should not stop us from preparing.
His number one hack, a two-phase smartphone inventory. Walk through your house, film every single nook and cranny, ceiling to floor, and do the same for the outside perimeter. Then upload it to the cloud. Why? Because if you have to file an insurance claim, your provider cannot claim your stuff wasn't there. Now for the actual forecast.
Well, and you better believe that if you submit that footage to them, they're going to look at that footage under a microscope, and they're going to look for every crack around your windows. They're going to look at anything that they could possibly look at in that footage to see why or how they can deny that claim. Oh, well, it looks like you have like a tiny little gap in between your window panes. That's how some of the water got in, so we're going to have to deny your entire claim.
Emergency management says current models show an East Coast hit is below 25%, but there is a 30 to 40% chance of a West Coast storm cutting right across the peninsula. If you
I don't want to hear that. Damn
evacuate,
it.
officials say stop
We already
driving
had
12
that happen
hours
in
away to other
2024.
states. It just causes
Twice.
gridlock. Run from the water, hide from the wind. Drive tens of miles, not hundreds. Just get past the turnpike or the interstate to a secure structure. Don't wait for the last minute mad dash when the shelves are empty. Are you ready for June 1st? Let me know your prep plans in the comments and hit follow for more Florida news updates.
Although, yeah, the tax, I think it actually might be tax-free or a sales tax-free season right now, or maybe that begins on June 1st, but I want to say it begins right before June 1st, where like anything that's on the hurricane supplies list, it's tax-free and you can go and stock up, which I think I'm pretty well stocked up still. But yeah, we had a Hurricane Helene here that brought the highest storm surge that we've had in my area in over 80 years. And then 2 weeks later, we had Hurricane Milton, which gave us 100-mile-an-hour winds at my house, which was not fun. That was crazy. Like, by the grace of God, we didn't go without power after Hurricane Helene, but we did after Milton. We went like 4 days without. So, yeah, I mean, there's always something that has to be done. But, yeah, I know it's about that time. I got to go through that checklist to make sure I got everything. But fortunately, I live on high ground, thank God. And, yeah, no matter the storm, we ride it out. That's what I do. I ride them out just because it would be a nightmare living where I live. I live in Pinellas County, which is in the St. Petersburg area, and St. Pete, Clearwater, Largo, and so on. And it's a nightmare to evacuate because you've only got US 19 to the north, and then you've got 3 Bay Bridges. And if you're taking the Bay Bridges, and if the storm looks bad enough, you are crossing the bridge into Tampa, and all of them are trying to leave too. So it's a traffic nightmare. But still, I mean, if you live in a trailer, if you live in a flood zone, if you got to leave, you got to go. So breaking 911, watch nearly 90 drones fell into the water at Sydney's Darling Harbor after the Vivid Star-bound drone show suffered technical difficulties, forcing organizers to cancel the performance. So I know it's not swamp related, but I came across it, figured why not? We're getting to the end of the episode. See if you can spot them. Spot them falling. Yep, I think those are falling. Oh, maybe not. I don't know. Yeah, those definitely look like they're falling. I'm not sure what shape it's supposed to be taking. Yeah, their DNA strand, that one's easy. I don't know about the other one. It's pretty. It'd be pretty fun to watch, I guess. Except the whole drone's crashing down. Yeah, definitely falling. All right, so yeah, that happened. And I got just one more from NASA. Of course, from NASA, we have awarded Astrolab Space with a Lunar Terrain Vehicle Award. With Astrolab, they make rovers for the Moon and Mars. The crewed lunar vehicle is a rover designed to transport astronauts and supplies across the lunar surface. This vehicle will be deployed to the Moon by 2028 through our Commercial Lunar Payload Services Initiative.
So,
and we'll have a look at what it looks like.
The first LTV award winner, and that is Astrolab. Congratulations.
Astrolab. Uh-oh. Yeah, it opens up. Wheels come out. So you got 2 seats. Or no, it's a 4-seater. I think there are 2 on the back too.
Astrolab has adapted its Flex Rover architecture to
maybe
deploy the crew
Thought they
lunar
might have had 2
vehicle
seats on the
number 1.
back.
So give him a round of applause. Congratulations. This new vehicle is smaller, lighter, and can accommodate up to 2 crew, which is what we asked for during Ignition Day, to be able to test and develop the capabilities as we go. Again, it has autonomous capabilities. It can be teleoperated, or of course the crew will drive it. CLV-1 has a maximum mass of 950 kilograms and can reach speeds up to 10 kilometers per hour. Astrolab is also
that's why
the
it's
Flip
glitching.
Rover, which has a lot of the features that will then be carried over to the lunar terrain vehicle.
2K.
Astrolab is using subs like Odyssey Space Research, Axiom Space, and Interloon as the subcontractors for that. So imagine the first rover, because we're going to have cameras, we're going to have payloads, roving around Mars and basically bringing us with them in real life, going to places we have never seen of the moon, testing us and giving us key ground truth data so we can build on that. Again, 1 round of applause for Astrolab. Congratulations.
Astrolab. Well, if you think that's cool, you should get a load of what they're doing over in Japan. They're building a full-on RV. They're actually going to send an RV to the moon. At least that's what they're working on. I think it's supposed to house something like 6 astronauts or maybe 8 astronauts. It has a capability of covering thousands of miles, although they don't expect it to go hundreds of miles away from base camp. But it does have that capability to take long journeys, and I believe it could house astronauts like with the oxygen supply and everything for up to a week at a time. So that's crazy interesting what they're working on. And the Japanese, and I guess we'll see if that ends up happening or not. I imagine it will, but anyway, in the meantime, that's the end of this episode. So if you enjoyed the episode, please give a quick like and subscribe, and I'll be back tomorrow night as we explore the swamp Monday through Friday. And don't forget, the video clips from tonight will begin dropping on the channel tomorrow at 8 a.m. Eastern. Thank you very much for watching. God bless the troops, and God bless America.